Just this week alone, Smilegate RPG announced that Lost Ark has over 20 million active players worldwide. Now, if you go look at Steam charts, you'll see that Lost Ark has also lost over 50% of its active player base. But here's the thing, it hasn't. MMO players obsess over the numbers, so much so that pretty much these companies have actively stopped reporting them to us outside of maybe within the first month, and then after that it just pretty much goes quiet because there's no value in them sharing the numbers that people will obsess over and come up with the wrong conclusions. Thus has brought me to the conclusion that MMO number analysis is bad. Anyway, now in a pure subscription numbers world, and just where MMOs are supported purely off of subscription alone, I get how it makes sense. But things have changed. Now, for the better or for the worse, you can let me know where you stand. But I keep thinking about the why. Why do we obsess over these numbers? Does it really make a difference or an impact? What has changed over the last 20 years to really drive this point home? And I've come up with kind of 3 key points that I want to talk to you guys about today. The first one being the grind. What is our investment level in these games? How does that keep us from actually jumping into a new game or a different game? And that's what I want to talk about first. Second, I'm going to talk about content creation money farms. I get how there's obviously going to be a little bit awkwardness in that, but I have to be my honest self with you guys. Just because I'm a content creator doesn't mean I can't talk about content creation in that regards, especially as it relates to this topic. And I think that might hopefully be the most interesting section, but at the same time, I'm not faulting content creators for making money, but it's going to be awkward. It's going to be fun and awkward at the same time. Then third, how do we really launch MMOs nowadays? Is Lost Ark going to be something where it becomes the case study for MMORPGs going forward? Or is it going to be something where this is just something historical that we haven't ever seen and probably will never see again? Or at least something so very rare, it's just a beautiful unicorn that we're excited to jump into and talk about. I guess jump into sounds really wrong out of context. Anyway, let's just go with it. So first and foremost, let's talk about the grind. We're talking about the investment of our time. Now, time and money, like these are some, concepts that people talk about. And we've seen that blending and that friction of time and money when it comes to these MMORPGs, specifically in terms of being able to pay to skip the grind or to lessen the grind. And that's where I think within gaming culture, we see a lot of friction as a part of it. We see this in every game. We see this in all these games now, where even in single player games, you can increase your experience per gain. And no matter what, mentally, we're always like, I think they are making it harder so that I open up my wallet. And so I honestly really get frustrated when we see those kind of systems, but it's going to be a case by case basis, because at the end of the day, one of the most entertaining things to me to watch over the last couple of weeks was people just talk about Lost Ark being pay to win. And then essentially coming to the conclusion, they didn't care. Oh, because they loved the game. And I think that's something that we actually just recently talked about on the ACG podcast. I'll put a link to it below if you guys are curious. It was a really great show. We talked a lot about Lost Ark, Destiny, Final Fantasy, and more. But let's focus in on why we're concerned because of the grind itself. And the grind means investment in time. If I'm going to go and put like 200, 500, 1,000 hours into a game, I always want to know that that time isn't going to just be evaporated or eviscerated. Now, while I personally don't believe that MMOs really do die, I think essentially that is something that comes down to it. I think the right mindset is that shut down, because a game is going to die to you no matter what. No matter where you are in the world, you're going to have a game, quote unquote, die for you. I always kind of view that as a more personalized view set, where somebody either burns out heavily, and the real question of it is that, do they ever come back? And that's what we see actually with Lost Ark's systems in place about, yes, the top tier, the no-lifers, the people who, in a way, as we get into part 2, make their career out of, just playing one game and one game only. I think it's really fascinating to see how that Lost Ark lessens that grind for people coming back. Final Fantasy 14 does the same thing. In fact, we're seeing that kind of model all over the place, which is taking MMOs from being no-life feeding games to seasonal games. And whether, again, this is a good thing or a bad thing, you can always let me know where you stand. I'm always just generally curious as to see how people identify with those, because like I in myself kind of identify with I want a place to live, a game to live in, but then the reality of life hits and I obviously go around and play a couple different games. It's interesting to me. Anyway, so Anyway, the other side of that, beyond like the grind and investing our times, I think the other reason we obsess about it is community, and we also obsess about being a part of something big. Not that it's everybody, and not that that's you who is listening to these words right now specifically, but overall, it feels good to be a part of the big thing. It feels good to be somebody who's a part of the conversation. Same thing kind of we see going on with Elden Ring right now, and it's interesting to see kind of some kind of friction in that in and of itself, because in my mind, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. Like, if you're having fun, who cares? You're having fun. Like, that's the goal of the game. But there's something that has evolved over the course of maybe even back in the schoolyard days of the NES, SNES era of games, where being a part of the Super Nintendo generation versus the Genesis generation is just a way that we segment ourselves to feel better about ourselves. It's just, I don't know, it's entertainment, and at the same time, it's like, okay, as long as I'm aware of what I'm doing, maybe there's hope for me in the future. Now, the second point that I want to bring up is content creation money farms. I've seen, as a content creator, like, these kind of things build up, but it was really in my mind the kind of the real key moment in content creation money farming was when Ninja shared how much he made on Fortnite 1 month alone. And this was back early in the days in which that I think he shared 280,000 that he made playing Fortnite. And you saw immediately so much, and so many content creators shift to the directory. So many more people jumped in. Now, I'm not faulting people for making money making content. I think that's something that's really interesting. But ultimately, for me, what it shows is that when, are people playing the game because they like the game, or are they playing the game because it supports them, or it feeds them, or it has them grow, or it gives them some kind of relevancy in the space? And every individual is going to have to make up that decision for themselves as a content creator, but also everybody's going to have to make up that decision about that content creator for themselves. And that's why the online discourse is usually pretty weird when it comes down to it, if I'm being honest. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is that I feel like it's my honest self talking about how odd it is that we make money by making content, and at the same time, like, I don't fault that, but it becomes something where, at least for myself, and I can only really speak to my own intentions, is I try to be very careful with that. Try to make the best content possible, but at the same time, specifically make decisions that I know hurt the channel, because I know how the algorithm works. And while I'm not going to fault anybody for making a different decision, it's just, there's patterns that I end up picking up on, and I try not to let my cynical self drive that conversation home. But then ultimately, I wonder if it's all just about human psychology in the end, when it comes down to these algorithms and to these content creation, structures and farms. I've spoken with not like anybody that is big that you probably have heard of, but I know that there are channels that it's like that have advised people to go out and like buy their subscribers and things like that. And there's just massive concerns that I have with that, with impressionable youth. And that's just the parent in me. Like, when it comes down to it, like, you see that people want to be a YouTuber as a full-time job, and that's an aspiration that kids have. And I've shared that that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. It's like, I really want to understand content creation and the ins and outs of it, so that if for some reason my kids decide that they want to jump into it themselves, I can help navigate and hopefully keep them safe while helping to hopefully make great content. Like, that's the idea in and of itself. I always try to hope that my videos themselves bring some joy, introspection, interesting conversation or a thought into your world, and that and vice versa. Then you bring those kind of thoughts and introspection into mine, and it's kind of a game of Pong, if you will, of ideas, and that's essentially kind of like where I go with it. But I do see these patterns of like content creation and the ebb and flow. It's almost so predictable now that it in and of itself is a meme, right? That's where I get at it. I always kind of like think about these things in terms of the humor and the predictability. But I'd love to know your thoughts, like content creation. What do you see about that? Why in and of itself, when it comes down to the numbers, I think it does play on that first one, that concern for the community, because it then it inspires engagement, which feeds the algorithm. So that means like somebody who's like a passionately defender of the game feels like they have to come and refute whatever is being said. Somebody who's frustrated at the game or doesn't care and wants to troll, and then you just kind of let them go at each other. So try to respect each other in the comments, by the way. If for any reason we end up getting those viewpoints into this conversation, Just note that at the end of the day, if you're having fun, have fun. Like no one wants to stop you. And if you're just trying to troll, I don't know, maybe do it better. All right, and then finally, the third topic: how to really launch an MMO in, 2022 and beyond. Lost Ark is 3 years old. It's been out, and it's got more content. They were adjusting their roadmaps. There's so much to do and see in this game that I think it's pretty interesting that this game was done what it's done. I think it also continues to keep MMOs on the map. I think it continues to shut down the conversation about MMOs. Now, there's generational MMO players. We're seeing obviously friction between what people might call the old school and what people might call the new school, but I'm not really talking about that. Generally speaking, with a theme park based MMO design, the number one complaint is twofold. You rush to cap, and where's the end game? Lost Ark's case is, I haven't even made it to end game. There's so much content in that case. There's so much to do. Like, I don't even know how the end game is. Well, the end game, like, those questions have been answered. They've been tested. They've been proven by other areas. So much so that I think that is one of the things that keeps people coming back, is that they know there's more content because they can actually see that promise being fulfilled. And I think it always comes down to trust. I've said this about every game when it comes down to it. Yoshi P said that we lost the trust of the player base and we have to earn that back. And that's what they've done with Final Fantasy XIV. Trust is the key aspect with these three things. So this video is themed around that one idea: trust. Do you trust that the game will be here tomorrow? Do you trust that the people sharing the information care? That they're doing it legitimately? Do you trust that, more content, more game, that your experience will be and your time will be respected? That's really the real question here. And I think the answer is true. I think the answer is great. And I think that, like I've said in previous videos, the way we discuss MMOs online is broken. And I don't yet have a solution. And that's a part of my process. That's a part of me thinking through what makes the most sense. And hopefully I can continue to evolve and create that content for you. But to help facilitate really great discussions and really great, like an evolution, of conversation. Anyway, that's my hope. That's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you got something good out of this video. But if nothing else, I hope that you have a fantastic day and or weekend. This has been Ginger Prime. My name is Brian. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you have a great and wonderful day. Hopefully I'll see you in my next video. But until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to Destiny. I'm off with a clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh.